They didn't have enough. It was a wedding. It was supposed to be a lavish celebration that lasted for a couple of days, and they were going to run out of wine. Not that the couple had to provide all the refreshments themselves. The guests were supposed to bring food and drink to share. The guests had not done their part. They failed to support this couple by helping with the wedding banquet, but that hadn't stopped the guests from eating and drinking everything they could see. You didn't run out of wine in a wedding. You just didn't do it in a village the size of Cana. Every time somebody got married in the future, the guests would get to talking and somebody would say, "Hey, remember when Simon and Miriam got married and they ran out of wine? Man, that was the worst wedding ever. Good thing nobody's done that again." The shame was going to follow this bride and bridegroom for the rest of their lives. They would always be known as the couple who didn't have enough. Not enough wine, not enough friends, not enough support. Jesus happens to be a guest at this wedding. According to the Gospel of John, he is the Word of God, the creative, redeeming power of God, the divine speech and wisdom made human flesh. From his fullness, everyone has received grace upon grace. He is abundance, and his abundance flows out from him to shower on everyone. It's early in Jesus' public ministry. He is just beginning to reveal who he is in the world. He's there at the wedding, but he's keeping quiet, staying in the background, waiting because this isn't his time. He thinks that anyway, but his mother has other ideas. She calls the wine situation to Jesus' attention. She doesn't ask him for anything. She just says to the servants to do whatever Jesus tells you. Jesus is forced into action, though he still keeps to the background. He instructs the servants to fill some empty stone jars with water and then to take the water to the steward. Only the servants know what Jesus has done. By the time the steward tastes it, the water has become wine. The steward congratulates the bridegroom on serving such an excellent vintage. Jesus supplies what this community has failed to bring. He has saved this groom and bride from public shame. He has brought what this couple really need. When we read the Bible, especially when we read the miracle stories in the Bible, the question of whether it really happened this way is much less important than the meaning the biblical author is trying to convey. Nobody can prove to us that Jesus really changed water into wine. We have no way of knowing that. And when we fixate on that question, we quickly run into a dead end. What we can answer is what the story meant, what it meant to the original audience long ago, and what it might mean for us today. The gospel writer John sometimes uses really specific numbers, and when he does that, he seems prone to exaggeration. 6 stone water jars, each holding between 20 and 30 gallons each. That's between 120 and 180 gallons of water. That's how much water the guests needed to wash their hands before the meal. This must be a big wedding to go through that much water. And this is no 2-buck chuck. Jesus doesn't serve plonk, but the finest wine. 120 or 180 gallons is a vast amount of wine. It's far more than any wedding banquet could expect to use, even if it is for hundreds of people and lasts for a couple of days. John is making a point. This is what grace upon grace tastes like. Abundance tastes like 6 stone water jars full of the finest wine. This grace upon grace reorients your way of being in the world. When you aren't worried about running out, you share generously with your neighbors. You need to give away some of what you have because it's far more than you can use yourself. So you look beyond your neighbors to meet new people, and you share with them. You trust more fully in God because you know that God provides for you more than you need. grace upon grace forms and strengthens and restores relationship. The story of 6 jars of water turned into wine invites us to ask what grace upon grace tastes like for us, where we have been fed so lavishly that we had to share, when we have received abundance and known it was Jesus. I would love to hear what those things are for you. I'm remembering a bowl of exquisitely perfect carrot soup, this intense, concentrated carrot flavor with just a sprinkle of sea salt. That's what grace upon grace tastes like to me. I'm thinking of the vast, never-ending crop of tomatoes that Melville grew last summer, how we ate and froze and canned as many as we could and still had so many we had to give them away. That's when I have been fed so lavishly that I had to share. And I remember making lunch while on vacation with friends. We had so many leftovers from the couple of days before that we couldn't close the fridge. We kept opening the door and finding more and more things to eat until the table was groaning with food. That's when I have received abundance and known it was Jesus, because it was communion as surely as anything we do here. I notice that remembering these moments makes me want to be generous. It makes me trust more deeply in God to provide for me. I notice that experiencing grace upon grace reorients my way of being in the world. It makes me want to show that grace in my life. Last fall, a group of colleagues and I did Sacred Ground together. Sacred Ground is a ministry of the Episcopal Church. It is a 10-session film-based program that explores the history of race in the United States. It invites participants to reflect on their own lives, their own family history, the history of their own community, and respond to what they learn with action. I already knew our family history, that I am descended from slave owners on both sides of my family, and not small-scale slave owners either. My ancestors owned hundreds of acres of land and enslaved dozens of human beings. So I decided to dig into the history of my community, to learn how the past continues to shape the present. And I got interested in redlining. You may know that from the mid-1930s to the mid-1970s, the Federal Housing Administration, mortgage lenders, and insurers drew red lines around some neighborhoods on city maps, especially black neighborhoods, and refused to issue mortgages or insure homes in those areas. They designated other neighborhoods, especially white neighborhoods, as highly desirable and made it relatively easy for white people to get mortgages and insurance there. Redlining has been illegal for nearly 50 years, but it still affects homeownership rates, credit scores, house prices, and household wealth today. Melville and I live in Clintonville. Our house was built in 1923. I was curious. So I Googled redlining maps of Columbus. I found one on OSU's website from the 1930s, zoomed in, and found our street. It was designated highly desirable. The value of our house, a house that is now worth 20% more than we paid for it less than 2 years ago, depends on a system that was designed to funnel wealth away from people who don't look like me and concentrate wealth among people who do look like me. Most of the time, I can hold myself at a distance from my family legacy of slaveholding. That's far back in the past. But redlining ended just a few years before I was born. It feels much more personal and immediate. It feels like it is my responsibility to do something about it. My instinctive reaction when I began to ponder this was, I don't have enough. Okay, so I benefit from this overtly racist practice, but what am I supposed to do? Give away the value of my house? It's not like we're millionaires. We don't have children to take care of us when we're older, and we've got retirements to fund. And then I remembered carrot soup and tomatoes and our massive lunch of leftovers. I remembered Jesus and grace upon grace and 6 stone jars brimful of the finest wine. I remembered the taste of God's abundance, how with Jesus there is more than enough, so much that you have to give it away. Maybe giving away the value of my house in confidence that Jesus will provide all I truly need is exactly what I do need to do. And here, dear ones, is where I need your help. I don't want to profit from redlining. I want to make amends for the harm this practice inflicted. One way I can accomplish that is to give away the value of my house and my estate plan so the money benefits people who were hurt by redlining. I've had that thought and I cannot unthink it. But sacred ground ended months ago. I've had one brief chat with my husband about it, but not the lengthy discussion we need to have. I have not called our lawyer to update my will because I'm scared. I am still scared that I won't have enough. I need to hear stories of people who have trusted in Jesus' abundance, ordinary people whose way of being in the world was reoriented by grace upon grace. If you have a story like this, I need to hear it. Perhaps grace upon grace has reoriented your life, and your example can help me trust more fully in God to provide everything I need. I know this is true. I just need a little help to live it. That with Jesus, we have more than enough. We have an abundance. He has given us 6 stone jars full of the finest wine, and it is everything we truly need.